Hi, everybody, and welcome. It is yet another Monday on Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine, and joining me in the chat room, or not in the chat room, as panelists, I guess. Let me check to see. I'm going back and forth like a crazy person here. See if anybody else wants to get in here. No, it's just the four of us. All right, we got Jake, we got Rick, and we got Brian the equine, and maybe more people to come later on the program. I wanted to start out with a great story first, and then kind of morph into something a little bit different that Brian already knows about, and then get going on just the regular sport stuff. Leicester Royal Infirmary in England, okay? Here's a hospital you don't want to go to, Rick.
Uh-oh.
Terry Brazier, age 70, went into the Leicester Royal Infirmary for a bladder procedure known as a cystoscopy, but was mistaken for another patient by hospital staff, and they proceeded to circumcise him.
Okay.
I mean, this is a real stretch, you know.
You hope you get cock blocked? Is that
well, maybe not so much anymore.
Not anymore. No, I mean, you know what's really great about it is, you know, he didn't even have to pay for the procedure because they accepted tips.
Hey, they're handing out free braces. What the hell?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the hospital, for its part, apologized and carried out an investigation before confirming today that it awarded the man a $24,300 payout. He's got a cleaner, fresher penis, and he's $24,000 richer. Brazier told the British newspaper The Daily Star that he was so distracted talking to hospital staff that he didn't even notice he was getting circumcised. God, it was a good thing it wasn't an amputation that was on the docket.
Was he aware that it was being done at the John Wayne Bobbitt wing of the hospital? Or what?
Yeah, my God. It's like biggest, yeah, the donor was Lorena, and yeah, they didn't know what to say when they found out what they'd done. They said they can't send me back to the ward, and they needed to talk to me, I guess. He said being circumcised was a real surprise, and then he started talking Hebrew, the end. All right.
Talk about going off half-cocked. Boy, oh boy.
Oh, thank you. Very good. I got to let some more people in here. We have two attendees trying to get in, women trying to get in. We have Rox and we have Brittany, and both being promoted into panelist. So, and I'm going to unmute everybody, and there we go. So now there's 6 of us. Hi, Rox.
Hello.
Oh, you lip glossed for the occasion. And hi, Brittany. How are you?
Hi.
Hi, good to see you.
Brittany
You know,
speaks. Yay.
What?
I said Brittany speaks.
Yes. Brittany speaks the black man's treat. Too much Muslimism in my life. God only knows. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, one of my heroes. Now, what I'm going to say next is probably, I don't want it to be misinterpreted because I am really obviously very threatening toward people. Ryan Fournier, who is a political commentator and analyst, he is the chairman of @Trump Students. So he's Hitler Youth. No, he is the chairman of Trump Students. All right. And he tweeted the following today in the aftermath of the shootings that we've had in this country over the last several days. You've banned God, mocked people who believe in Jesus, and you think guns are the problem? And I have never been so offended in my life. I just want to say this. And again, I will repeat for the 85th millionth time that I am not in favor of confiscating guns from people in America. I am not aligned with anybody who wants to prevent people from owning guns. All right? That is not and never has been my position. However, when you're bandying about the name of Jesus Christ and you are basically supporting guns that are being used in violent crimes, you're not a fucking Christian by definition. Ryan Fournier, you are a politician. You are a Trump supporter. You have every right to be. But don't bring the name of God Almighty onto my Twitter feed, you fucking asshole. And I see the picture of Jesus, okay? Turning the other cheek with an Uzi hidden somewhere on him. That's not what God and the Son of God believe in. Jesus Christ did not believe in aggression. Stop it. If you have a political point to make it. But do not use the name of God. You know, you want to talk about mocking the belief in Jesus, you are misrepresenting him. You cocksucker, you. You're lying to people about what his teachings were. You're the one who has abandoned God. The public schools, look, I don't like it either. I sang Christmas carols in school. I've been through this on the air 1,000,001 times. I never had a problem with Christmas trees at my elementary school or at my high school. Never had a problem with it. What I have a problem with are people who have twisted and distorted religion to the point where they've turned Jesus Christ into a person who defends those who buy automatic weapons and blow people away. I will answer Ryan Fournier. Yes, guns are a problem. Yes, the state of our mental health system is a problem.
Can I correct something right there? You
don't have to correct. You have an opinion.
You
have an opinion, but not a correction.
No. This is a fact. Okay, for 80 years, the common public has been disallowed from owning fully automatic weapons unless you have a very special FFL license from the government.
Well, how are these people getting them?
A fully automatic weapon. And they hand them out very sparingly, and you have to go through.
Well, I'm sorry, your audio is breaking up. I'd love to hear this explanation. Yeah, I can't hear you. Unfortunately, your audio is all over the place. But without getting into the banning of guns, okay, which every time I talk about this issue, every time I talk about the issue, people get defensive. I'm not trying to take your guns away from you. What I'm saying is you can't have people who are mentally disturbed and have them not publicly reported that they're mentally disturbed. There has to be on record that these people have had emotional problems and are not fit to own weapons, okay? That is in the best interest of safety of our public. And the mental health system is not doing its job. And likewise, the gun coalition has made it in such a way that now you can buy guns and there's really no real checks. Within 2 to 3 weeks of buying these weapons, these crimes are being committed. So it's a bigger problem, and the problem isn't with banning God. I mean, that's your belief. That's your belief, Ryan Fournier, you pussy. That is your belief. However, mocking people who believe in Jesus? No, I don't mock people who believe in Jesus. I mock people who distort the teachings of Jesus and who try to make Jesus into a political figure. And when you describe yourself as a political commentator and analyst and a chairman of Trump students, you're not a believer in Jesus. Okay? That's all I really wanted to say. I should go to my panel. I mean, does this bother anybody else besides me? Rick, does it bother you?
Yeah, I had not seen this. I don't use Twitter, so I have not seen the comment or anything like that. But I'm sure it's called all sorts of things. These people that invoke God for this, that, or the other thing, I just look at it as selective Christianity. They pick out the verses that go with their agenda, and the rest of the Bible is an afterthought.
Oh, I see Stephen wants to get in. Thanks, Rox. I appreciate it.
You thought she was doing disco, weren't you?
I thought she was staying alive. Wait a minute. Let's get Stephen in here and promote him to a panelist. Better that than promoting him as an analyst.
But it's hard for me to hear something like that and think that someone actually has that opinion that, his Lord and Savior is promoting gun use and, because, or is being wrathful because, people are mocking his name or not having him in schools. I mean, really?
I mean, here's the
to think that way. Someone would actually have that opinion.
I know Rox. Rox is Christian, okay? She's a Christian girl. I mean, she was raised in a Christian family. There ain't nothing wrong with that. And, but it's not a political thing to be bouncing around. Jake, I know you probably don't want to talk about this, but I have no problem with people being of conservative values. I believe Rick is of conservative values politically, but that has nothing to do with this. When you invoke the name of God as a teaching of God and you associate it with a political situation, it's a problem because God does not have a political side. I mean, do you have any feelings about this, Jake, or do you want to just move on?
Move on.
Okay.
I saw too much coverage of this.
Yeah.
Mr. Mullet, can I ask you a question?
Sure, please.
Okay, one of the shootings happened in El Paso, which is in my home state, even though it's a 12-hour drive from where I live. I don't mean to get into these stereotypes. I mean, like, I'm half white, so why is it all the shooters are incel young white guys? Like, that's what it appears to be, like, between the ages of like 18 and 25. Like, these are nerdy, geeky guys. Look, they don't have any social life, no girlfriend, don't dress well. Like, they fit that protege, like, when they show their picture on the screen,
I don't know that I would have to have a big sample size to be able to narrow it down and to profile exactly what a serial killer is and what a serial killer looks like. Would be
with these mass shooters, with these mass shootings.
God only knows. I mean, I think part of the issue is that there's instant coverage on these things. And when a person does something dastardly like this, it's immediately publicized and other people probably see this and there's some copycat. Yeah, Jake.
I will say, regardless of any issue or whether it's violent or not, social media has made people virtue signal to both sides, especially Twitter. Yeah. I don't use Twitter, but they have to have a claim and spin it their own way. So these comments are being pushed out as an agenda immediately and abusing the situation even worse.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that it really hurts the ability to have a discussion. I mean, I was in my chiropractor's office today and they were showing The View, and it's like,
well, Mr. Wood, I'm sorry. It's just every time they go into these backgrounds of these mass shooters, like, one thing they have in common is they're like antisocial, no friends, no social life, no girlfriend.
They're mentally ill.
Yeah.
I mean, how many mentally ill people who talk to voices that aren't there have a lot of friends? I mean, people like that are not generally the life of the fucking party, I don't know.
Well, I guess what bothers me most is the need for instant defense of a situation to defend your side of things. And that's kind of what really bothers me about all of it. And social media, I think, does cause that negative side of it where you have to protect yourself and your side.
Yeah.
But
Did anybody here, we'll move on to sports. Did anybody here actually see visuals of the Browns, orange and brown scrimmage? Anybody?
I just saw the Texans on Saturday. That's all I saw.
Oh, all right.
I went there. Actually went to the practice.
Did you see anything, Rick?
I was at my high school reunion, my 50th.
Ah, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Jake, did you see any video on this?
Can't wait for the 100th.
I did not.
No. So I mean, I'm reading what the press is saying, and you know who did well and who didn't do so well. Brittany is wow. I guess
Become part of the media.
yeah. I guess she doesn't like the young, not so bright and polite kind of political views you hold there, Stephen. And
Rick is class of 2019, by the way. That's why he went to his graduation party.
all right. Then, but they're saying Myles Garrett did well, that Pharaoh Brown, he's not having a good camp, but he had a good scrimmage. That the scary part is that Eric Kush is doing better than Austin Corbett, and that's not good news. Danny Ukulele, that's what I call him. Quayle,
Come along with Danny.
yeah, is getting on the field. Austin Corbett did not get the immediate first team reps in this scrimmage. He gave up 2 pressures. This doesn't look particularly good. Drew Forbes, who there was a lot of internal Browns hype about, has not only become, he's out of Southeast Missouri State, so kind of a long shot, but he is he's just not flashing at all. He's going back and forth between guard and tackle, and his guard reps were horrible. I mean, from what he gave up inside pressures that created a fumble out of Garrett Gilbert's hands in the pocket, and he seemed off
Gilbert
balance.
Gottfried's hands.
Yeah. And he seemed off balance and unconfident. Wonderful. But Drew Forbes is slowly but surely on a team that needs offensive linemen is heading for the practice squad. Drew Stanton didn't look good, and that should not surprise us. An intercepted pass. He has not been accurate, and even though in his career he's been a short thrower with decent accuracy, his accuracy now is not looking good. You know, Garrett Gilbert may be the number 2 quarterback, and Stanton may be the guy who is the clipboard carrier and the guy who's just going to be kind of an extra coach on the sidelines. Austin Siebert, God only knows.
I heard that Joseph did much better than Siebert.
Siebert got booed. Okay. Wow. He missed 2 more field goals in the scrimmage, and he missed them early, and the crowd started booing him. Greg Joseph was perfect on the evening, but we've seen what he kicks like under pressure. So, I mean, the thing is that it's Siebert missed kicks from 43 and 46 yards. And that just cannot happen.
Any chance we can extend Phil Dawson's 1-day contract for about a year?
But I mean, this is a huge problem for the Cleveland Browns, and I'm not at all comfortable with Greg Joseph at all. And I know they want kicks from 50-plus yards, but the fact of the matter is that a big leg doesn't matter if you can't kick it straight, and that appears to be the problem with Austin Siebert right now. So that's the long and short of the scrimmage. And then we get on top of that Kareem Hunt, who's now kind of partially coming clean in his little incident, saying that he admitted that his minor incident in downtown Cleveland was a wake-up call. This bothers me because this is the first admission that he was someplace he shouldn't be. He said now he's focusing on family more and not going out as much. You know, and I don't understand. There's 1,000,001 places you can go when you go out, you know? And going outside of a nightclub or a bar and causing trouble just isn't one of them. For the life of me, I just am really getting the feeling that, you know, Kareem Hunt is never going to play for the Cleveland Browns because he's just going to fuck up. I mean,
Wow.
if you don't know that the last person on earth that would give you a chance has given you a chance, and you would even commit a minor indiscretion by being someplace that you couldn't afford to be, and in a situation that was an argumentative situation, just shows that he doesn't get it, and he's not going to get it.
Mr. Mued, is this comparable to Josh Gordon's situation when he was?
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because Josh Gordon's name is in the news too, and I'll slide over to that. You know, this is a joke. You know, Tom Brady is 42 years old, and he doesn't have the greatest, you know, of the receivers, but now Gordon is applied for reinstatement again. I mean, please. Josh Gordon should never play in the NFL again, and if he has to flip burgers for the rest of his life, fuck him. How many chances do you get? How many teams do you have to fuck over? Multiple drug-related suspensions in his career, and the league has indicated that it isn't giving up on him? Well, that's because Goodell wants to help the Patriots out, probably. But how is this good for the league?
Yeah.
How does this help the players' union?
And wasn't Mr. Goodell supposed to strike the hammer down on like domestic sexual abuse and all these drug offenses? And these players are getting like 2, 3, 4 strikes and nothing's happening.
Here's what Goodell said in March. The first thing right now is to focus on Josh himself as a young man and what he needs to do to get his life on the right track. How many times do I have to fucking hear this shit? His life is not on the right track. He is an addict. I said the same thing about Johnny Manziel. You know, it's a problem. And they don't care about the lives of these people. It's all about the impact on what he can have for the NFL. That's all it is. And if you cared about Josh Gordon, you would never have let him back the last 2 times. He has a problem. And it's amazing that the guy is going to try to get reinstated again. And they will let him back again. It's just, to me,
Mr. Muhead, how come Justin Blackman got blackballed for marijuana offenses, but you got a guy like Big Ben who is accused of something way worse, or players that get sexual abuse allegations or whatever, and they get more? It seems like there's a stiffer penalty on marijuana than there is on the more major offenses. Well,
the fact is that Ben Roethlisberger never really was formally accused of a crime. And as long as that's the case, you haven't broken the law. But if you are smoking marijuana in the NFL, that is against the league charter, and you are going to be penalized. So, I mean, that's kind of what it is. But it isn't that the marijuana is a worse thing. It's that one is very eminently provable with a blood test, and the other is something that becomes a he said, she said, or a witness said, and that becomes a real problem. So, you know, I guess to my way of thinking, it's you know, the Kareem Hunt thing falls right into the category of somebody who just, when you're young, maybe you think you have as many chances as you can get. I have no idea. I have no idea whatsoever. It's really disturbing.
Well, do you think Kareem in his hometown's a bigger problem as well? Because he has enablers around him?
Well, you know, they always say the first thing that you do if you're an addict or whatever is you find new friends. You don't go back to the group that you were with before, because you'll fall into old habits and old patterns. And look, to rehabilitate yourself from whether it's drug addiction, alcohol addiction, or to rehabilitate yourself from something that is abuse and, problems of, fighting and of recklessness that way, and there he is outside of a bar, and he's, with people that he shouldn't be with. It's all probably the reason that Duke Johnson hasn't been traded. That's my belief. Why the Browns are insisting they're going to hold on to him, because I don't think that there's belief that Dontrell Hilliard, I think he's doing nicely in preseason, but when we ramp this up to 100% playing speed, it's a different game, folks. What we're going to see in the preseason, it's a different game than what you're going to see week one. It's just the way it works. And Dontrell Hilliard may look like a world beater playing at half speed, but at full speed, it's a different game.
Mr. Muhead, like that was like in 1991. I think they said something like the Jets bragged about going 5-0 in preseason, and then they went 15 following that season. Detroit Lions went 5-0 in 07, they went 0-16.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very deceiving. You're running at snail's pace.
You're trying to avoid major injuries, and so you're playing at a slow pace. I mean, that's the nature of preseason football, and it's really all about, when we do halftime and post-game shows here, moving into the preseason, what we're really doing is we're assessing the bubble players. We're really assessing who might make the roster, who might not, who's a surprise, how does Mac Wilson look, how does Taki look. They're going to get the majority of snaps. It's not going to be the frontline guys. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to it. No one really cares about preseason like they did 10, 20 years ago. Like it used to mean something. That's why I think the NFL is trying to go to 18 games so they can eventually eliminate preseason or try to reduce it down. Nobody really cares about preseason,
No. And I know that I care about it only from the perspective that depth is going to be a major factor for the Cleveland Browns in the offensive line and the defensive line. And I want to see where that is supposed to come from. All right. It'll be interesting. More happening with the Browns. Ex-offensive line coach Bob Wylie shooting his mouth off. Wylie was, quite a character on Hard Knocks last year, and basically came out and said that it was Kenny Zampese who was the mastermind behind the Browns' explosive offense in the final 8 weeks of the season, and not Freddie Kitchens, and that the reason that Freddie was promoted to head coach is because Baker likes him, and there's a good relationship. But he said that Zampese did all the coaching there. And then he said Freddie didn't have any coordinator experience or head coaching experience. Wylie then indicated that the Browns' offensive assistants that got fired after Kitchens got the head coaching job felt that he left them out in the cold after they helped him go 5-3 in the second half of the season. It was like, thank you guys. You guys did a great job. Thanks for helping me get the interview, okay? But I'm going to take this job, and you guys are going to become collateral damage. That's what will happen, Wylie said. The interesting part of this is that Wylie was obviously a big Greg Williams supporter, and he said that Greg Williams didn't get the head coaching job because Dorsey didn't want him. Well, that's true. I didn't want him either. I mean, Dorsey's the general manager, and he's in charge of this shit. And he didn't want a career defensive coordinator who wasn't a great defensive coordinator and who had a losing record as a head coach.
Jake.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Somebody came in.
Calling Jake.
Oh, did you say something, Jake?
It was some in the background.
Oh.
It's cool. Yeah, don't worry about it. I tried to mute it.
Mr. Muhead, I know you're not too big on college football. I don't know if you are. Will you be covering any Ohio State Buckeyes?
Well, it will be talked about. I am just not a proponent of college football because I think that it's there's just a lot of issues involved of players building up tremendous war chests of money for universities and getting nothing in exchange, including their likenesses on video games. That finally got terminated because of that argument. Back in 2012, NCAA football on EA Sports has never been revamped.
Everyone wants to see another college football game, but I doubt we'll see it anytime soon.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is they don't own the rights to people's names and likenesses, and it's enough that they're making millions and millions and millions of dollars. The coaches alone are making millions and millions of dollars. The universities are making far more than that. So,
billions. Billions.
If you put it over time, that would be the case. And so, no, I mean, it'll be of interest to see what crops up and what Urban Meyer was actually running away from. I mean, and believe me, I think that something will crop up and there will be some investigation and he will be long gone. That is the history. I think that is the history of illegal recruiting coaches in every sport. College basketball, especially true. People tend to stay one step ahead of the law. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is something to that. But we'll be keeping an eye on how good Ohio State is, of course. Yeah.
And what sucks is Division I schools get away with it the most.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where the money is, right?
Yeah, I mean, like the Ohio States, even Texas gets away with it. The Floridas, the Alabamas, they get first dibs on all the players. And
Freddie Kitchens, by the way, responded to Bob Wylie saying, "You crippled fat fuck, why don't you just die?" No, he didn't say that. He said that Freddie Kitchens didn't want to hire Bob Wylie back. All right. And here's the response. All right. Kitchens was irked about Wylie's remarks Saturday on the Zach Gelb show on CBS Sports Radio and vented during his press conference. Among other things, he said, Wylie said the offensive staff did all the heavy lifting for Kitchens last season, and then they were collateral damage. He said he heard he was let go by his daughter. That was the story that Bob Wylie said while he was in the hospital for 122 days rehabbing from major surgery on his ankle and knee. But here is what Kitchens said, and I think it's interesting. Bob Wylie wasn't under contract. He forgot to tell everybody that. He wasn't under contract. He had talked about retiring forever, all right? So sometimes when a person says something, they have to be made to feel relevant, all right? Bob's a good person. I don't want to lose sight of that, and I have too much respect for him as a person. But what I would say is what got lost in the shuffle is what really mattered and what we're doing now. We had 40,000 people at a stadium for practice. The proceeds went to Get to School initiative, and all of this stuff that we're doing is getting lost in the shuffle because of this publicity. He also had a stern word for leaks within the Browns organization, which has been a problem for this organization for so many years. The days of inside information, days of unnamed sources and stuff like that have ended. Wow. You're not going to get any information like that ever, anybody. And if I ever see it, they're fired immediately. That's the way we're running this organization, and I can take it. John Dorsey can take it. We won't crack, I promise you. So any other questions?
Wow.
So for all the talk about good old boy Freddie Kitchens, there's a spine on this guy. And the players, it's not a matter of the players having it easy, all right? This is not a player's coach in the traditional sense that they're being coddled. I believe that if it's time to get rid of Kareem Hunt, they're going to get rid of Kareem Hunt, all right? There is going to be a very low tolerance for this kind of thing because the team is trying to turn this around. Haslam is not very much involved, but Dorsey knows what a professional organization looks like, and all of his people are on the same page, and that's what we want to see. We want to see the owner distanced. We want to see the general manager have a very good communication with the owner, but have the ability to make the decisions that are going on and control what's going on in the front office and on the field, and that we have, a head coach that backs the general manager, and that we have assistants who are not looking for publicity on the Hard Knock show or the Big Cock Show, or the Hard Cock Show, or any other, or the Dewey Cock Show, any
Cock-a-doodle-doo show.
Yes, right. I mean, so and Cox Cable Incorporated. You know, so the way Freddie distilled it was, it's not about me and it's not about Bob. It's not about the staff. Our job is to get the players ready to play. It's about the players. But when do they get their credit? Because they had to make a conscious decision to turn this thing around, and they did that. So I would say that about the comments. It doesn't matter. Bob doesn't wear brown and orange anymore. I had the opportunity to hire Bob. I didn't want to. I went to the hospital to see Bob every week. He was in the hospital, all right? I FaceTimed him before every game, before we went out as a staff, just so he would continue to feel a part of it. So at what point does Bob realize that it was the players and not the coaches that turned it around? Now, that's the last thing I'll say about it. That's what a smart head coach says. Give credit to your players. Don't give it to yourself, Hugh Jackson, you stupid fuck. You know, give credit to where credit is due, and the players turned it around, and the coaching staff and the general manager are not putting up with crap. And Freddie is looking over the assistants and making sure that none of them shoot their mouths off like Bob Wylie did. And nobody is going to break information that is inside information and leak it to the media. So that's kind of a tempest in a teapot, but it's amazing who comes out of the woodwork, guys. You know, once the team starts getting publicity, it is amazing to me who in the end comes out of the woodwork. And it's the fat guy who can't walk, who's not going to be part of this. And honestly, if the offensive line got better last year, it's because we distilled the playbook. Bob Wylie was there all year, and the offensive line sucked at the beginning of the year. And it wasn't until the right plays were selected that the offensive line looked for shit. And Bob Wylie, believe me, he looked like he was on his last legs to me watching him on the Hard Cock Show.
Gee, with no leaks or anything, we may never see another Mary Kay Cabot byline for quite a while.
Yeah, well,
Some hard cocks with leaks.
well, thank you for that. And from what I understand, physiologically, it's hard to take a leak when you have a hard cock. All right, Jake, I mean, is this a tempest in a teapot, or is this just been a situation where Freddie has turned this to his advantage so that he can make his point? How do you see this?
I feel like every assistant coach that didn't make the cut wants to get their shot in now and try to get a job somewhere else, because they don't want to have a new rookie head coach reject them, and kind of hurts their brand in a way, right? If a rookie head coach doesn't want to keep the people he knows on staff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'd love to be able to talk to Freddie and say, hey, why did you want to keep this guy? But I'm sure that they're, you know, and I think maybe character issues have something to do with it. I think Bob Wylie is a guy who shoots his mouth off. And I think that was kind of shown on the Hard Knocks program. So, Rick, I mean, do you think that this is a healthy end to this whole thing?
Well, hopefully this will, you know, close the door on this whole situation, and then Wylie can just move on and do whatever it is he needs to do. I think, you know, Freddie's just trying to put all this behind. This was all last year. We're into 2019. We have other stories to make. We have other goals to pursue. And unfortunately, Bob, you're not one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody really cares about the offensive line coach. I think people care about who's going to start on the offensive line and whether they're going to protect Baker Mayfield. If you aren't following the Browns closely enough, Oliver Vernon, Sheldon Richardson are both injured. Vernon with a hamstring, Richardson having an abdominal issue, which is probably a pulled abdominal muscle, not comfortable at all. Myles Garrett and Larry Ogunjobi were not in pads. So basically what we were looking at today in practice were Chris Smith, Anthony Zettel, Trevon Coley, Devereaux Lawrence in the middle, and Daniel, the amazing ukulele player, also rotated in at defensive tackle.
Most of these people will probably see on Thursday anyway against the Redskins.
Dun, 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 somewhere over the rainbow. That's Daniel ukulele. So the entire starting defensive line was not even participating in anything but stretching. So, this is a good opportunity for somebody to create an opportunity for themselves. Unfortunately, the first play of the practice, Nick Chubb broke through the line on an inside run for a huge gain. That was the first play, and it only went downhill from there. The line was unable to stop the first team offense on 3 straight inside runs in the red zone that was capped by a touchdown by Dontrell Hilliard. And we're talking about Chad Thomas, Trevon Coley, Carl Davis, and Wyatt Ray were the second team front line. I will say this. Depth in the league is not an easy thing to find. And on a defensive line for the Cleveland Browns, you got some really nice players if they stay healthy. But what backs them up, and it's true for all teams, if you have to go to backup offensive linemen and backup defensive linemen because of injuries, the quality drops off precipitously. And that is what was on display at practice today. There were other defensive players, including Brian Price, Jannard Avery out with an ankle, Tavier Thomas with a hamstring, and a Darius Taylor still on concussion protocol. So anyone who says that there are no injuries in the Browns, you just haven't gotten the big one. But there's a lot of soft tissue injuries, and there always will be, because you're going from doing very little to suddenly going into hitting with pads, and these practices get longer and harder as they go. Terrence Mitchell made a good play, but he made some bad plays too. Greedy Williams picked off a pass. Derek Willis made a great one-handed catch in the end zone on the singular deep ball that Baker has thrown. In this entire practice scenario, everything that they are working on are short and mid-range throws. This one went 50 yards in the air, and Derek Willis made a one-handed catch in the end zone and beat TJ Carey on the play. And it was a nice catch, but a beautiful throw. Mac Wilson is flashing, working with the second team, and he seems to be strong in coverage. This is interesting because when the 2 linebackers were drafted, Mac Wilson out of Alabama, Takataki out of Utah, Takataki was looked upon as a guy who was a real cruncher, a hitter, and was more running game but lost in coverage. And Mac Wilson was looked upon as a guy who could do coverage but had a habit of taking the wrong angles against running backs. But Mac Wilson is looking good in coverage. He was running with running backs out of the backfield as well as tight ends. And he even stopped Damon Sheehy Giuseppe, who is probably dropping faster than a stone when he lined up into the slot. He also batted down a pass in the red zone. So Mac Wilson, I think, is going to make the team, and he is going to be, again, a special teams guy along with Takataki. But I would not be surprised to find that Mac Wilson will have a clearer path to get on the field in the regular season with the starting unit. I don't mean as a starter, but I mean to have a role on the field. If I were to ask you, we'll start with Jake, Takataki or Mac Wilson, who do you think has a better chance of hitting the field for more plays this season, regular season?
This year, probably Mac Wilson. All the reports are saying he's more ready and more sound. And I think that Taki is a project, and he has the energy, but I don't think he has it this year. I mean, him into a linebacker could start, but he's not there just yet.
Rick, we know that we have coverage problems with the linebackers. This is a problem. Christian Kirksey and Joe Schobert, who are the 2 in the 4-2-5 alignment, neither one doing great things in terms of coverage last year. Does this play into Mac Wilson's advantage?
I think so. Mac, can maybe pick up the slack that Schobert and Kirksey seem to be lacking as far as the coverage goes. Although, unless Schobert and Kirksey can improve their tackling skills, Taki, if he's good at hitting the running backs and out of the backfield and preventing the long run, that could maybe be a big benefit too if Schobert's still going to try to lead the league in missed tackles again.
One of the things that I find really interesting is I was reading an article, and I didn't even save it for the show today because it was, teams that are going to win more games than they won last year. And one of them was the New York Jets. And one of them was also the New York Giants. And I can't figure that out either. But the Jets with Sam Darnold have a real problem on their offensive line. So much so we talked about on the last program Friday that they were giving Ryan Khalil a look-see, who is really long in the tooth. Well, if you're not following our own division, the Baltimore Ravens have basically gotten rid of guard Alex Lewis for a 2020 conditional 7th round pick. The meager compensation for a player in Lewis who has been injured virtually nonstop over 3 seasons. The interesting part of this is that Lewis wanted to rehab with his own people, not with team doctors and physical therapists, and angered the Ravens. And it is the second guy who was a pick for the Ravens that they've just, they were going to put him on waivers. They found a taker. And the funny thing is it's the Jets who are the taker, who are so depleted offensive line-wise behind in front of a quarterback who is an absolute disaster throwing picks. The Jets are going to try out Betty White on the offensive line if they have a damn chance. The Jets couldn't wait for the waiver priority. They're number 3 on the waiver priority, but they felt that the Arizona Cardinals or 49ers would snatch up Lewis, who has only 1 year remaining on a contract. He's due to make $2 million in 2019. But they were so concerned that somebody would claim him that they actually gave up a 7th round in order to get him, which tells you how confident the Jets are with their offensive line. It was the second line move in 4 days. We talked about Ryan Khalil earlier. Lewis was a 2016 4th round pick. So, this is not a guy. This is a mid draft guy for them. He started 10 games last year, and he was expected to compete for a starting job at left guard, but he could not stay healthy. He missed a total of 28 games over 3 seasons, which is a huge total. He began training camp on the PUP list while recovering from shoulder surgery. And 2 days after passing his physical, Lewis posted on Instagram he was no longer even in the Ravens' plans, just like that. 10 days ago, Harbaugh said that he looked good, strong, and was moving well. But that was the end of that. And the thing that makes this even more interesting than the Jets' desperation is that the Ravens' left guard position is up in the air. Now, we saw this with Desmond Harrison last year and Greg Robinson taking over. But the truth is, you really don't want, if you're really interested in running the football with your quarterback, the one thing you don't want is a left guard situation clogging up and mucking up the running game that was so effective for your team last year. Jermaine Illuminor, he failed his conditioning test to start camp. And he was working with the starters in the spring. Ben Powers is a rookie 4th rounder. James Hurst, who finished last season as the starting left guard, but they moved him over to tackle. So this is not just about the Jets. This is about the Ravens. And it's really interesting that if you're going to base your whole team on a running game, that you're playing musical chairs on the offensive line and getting rid of players who were projected as starters. What do you make of this? Steven, you first.
I'll go second.
Oh, your point. Oh, somebody trying to get in here. All right. That's it's unusual. Usually people are dying to get out of here. And it's Broncola. We'll bring Bronk in here.
We'll let Bronk go first since he didn't get to talk much.
Yeah, that's true. And we'll unmute all. Hey, Bronk, are you there?
Hey, I am, I think.
All right. I take it you wanted to jump in for a reason. We'll let you talk first. Did you hear the question?
No.
Okay, well, in that case, you're not talking first. I guess Jake is talking first. I mean, what does this tell us about the Ravens?
It's almost Spurs like how they just don't like a second opinion doctor to get in there. Kind of skeptical in a way. But they must have not been extremely high on him if this thing is the reason they wouldn't deal with him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, they weren't endorsing him, but
Yeah.
It's not like I'm hearing anything positive about these other names. It's just, boy, you would think that a team that ran the ball as efficiently as they did last year would be trying to maintain as much unity on that offensive line.
It must have been a nightmare, the contract situation, and they knew they weren't going to pay him. It had to have been that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Just let him go now. Don't deal with it.
Good point. I agree with that.
Rick, what do you think? I mean, do you get the feeling that a lot of things are up in the air for the Ravens?
Get the feeling if they don't have a left guard resolved that Jackson's going to be running a lot of plays to the right, and if the defense starts tearing through what's left of their offensive line, he may not have to worry about looking downfield for a long pass or tight end. He may just be dinking and dunking just to save his life.
Yeah, third and long is the enemy of the Ravens, and it's going to be interesting to see because last year what was interesting is they were running the ball on second and longs.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they were getting away with things in their running game that most teams, that if it had failed, they would have been booed off the field, but it didn't happen.
I think teams are now going to start catching on to it because, it's like the Wildcat when Miami brought it in 2008. Teams easily adjust to that. So I think if Lamar Jackson can't throw down the field and if they don't, basically what Rick said, if they don't figure out that left guard position, then it's going to be a very short day in Baltimore because I don't see the running game with Lamar Jackson working out. And dinking and dunking, I think that's going to be short-lived.
Well, the thing is that last year he would throw the ball a lot to his tight end. I mean, he was really locked in to his primary receiver. He did show the ability to show some touch and throw a long ball. But the real question is the receivers that he has, does he really have receivers who are breakaway threats for big plays? And again, if you can really collapse the middle of the field down and crunch it down against a player like that, there's a whole bunch of things. Yes, his legs can scramble and can maybe buy him time to throw the deep ball downfield. But you got to be able to keep your head up and look down the field. And I did not see that from Lamar last season. What I saw is when he took off. He wasn't really looking downfield to make big plays. So, Bronk, what did you come here to say, buddy?
Well, I'll say a little bit about the Ravens here because I reckon that now that we have Mac Wilson and Taki, I think when we come around to playing the Ravens, which will be quite late in the year, I don't think we first play them until October or November, we're going to have one of these fast young guys as the spy who will be responsible for separating the head from Lamar from the rest of his body. And I think that'll solve that problem if it isn't solved earlier in the year by him getting his head knocked off by some other defense. So I don't see the Ravens as a problem. I think the Ravens are a bit like the University of Michigan and the AFC North. You know, they're going to flatter to look like they're good, but they're not going to fucking do anything for years to come, particularly as long as they have the coaching staff that they do now.
But I'm hearing more and more doubts coming out of Baltimore. I think a lot of doubts from fans about bringing Harbaugh.
They hate fucking Harbaugh. You saw that on when you had those two fucking incredible idiots from that post-game show. God, what was wrong with them? Like, what part of the family tree did they fall off of? But you know,
well, I mean, but again, I think a lot of fans were not happy, and I went on Ravens forums and had nice conversations with people, and they were miffed that they were willing to make such a bold offer to bring the guy back. The other thing that we should not forget is that Ozzie Newsome's gone, and you know, when management changes that happen in your front office, who you draft, the types of people you draft, the decision making, and the basis by which people are drafted, radically different than the predecessor. So, you know, we'll see.
They're only going to take one hit, and they know about RG3, so they should be well aware of the situation and what could happen, especially with the low offensive line they got. Harbaugh better go under on that 149 rushes that Jackson's supposed to run this year.
Well, isn't another issue too, when you have a quarterback that needs that running option, that you kind of have to roll him out right almost all the time because he has to get to his strong side to throw the ball on the run. Correct. And that will limit their offense. That cuts him down half the field because he needs that option to take off for 4 or 5 yards to guarantee a positive play.
If we have quick defenders, that puts a stop to all this fucking nonsense.
Well, I don't know if there's a quick enough defender to keep Lamar.
No, that guy
wants to.
Yeah, grease lightning. The guy's grease lightning.
Yeah.
I mean, in an open field, he's going to make you look very bad. The thing is that it's always been about two things. One is containment, but the other that I have discovered is bigger and harder for a guy like that is a pass rush up the middle. I mean, if you're trying to loop around and pass rush him from the outside, he's going to step right through that, you know, manufactured hole, and he's so fast that he'll go right through it. If you can bring pressure up the gut, up the middle, then you're forcing him to move sideways and not forward. And that mitigates some of his speed. So you really, to be effective against the Ravens, you got to stop the run. You've got to be stout up the middle. And that means you got to stuff running plays, but you also have to get pressure from your other interior linemen. Or you have to bring clever blitz schemes up the middle so that his eyes are immediately drawn to pressure coming in toward him. And that will be what makes it hard for Lamar Jackson to then look someplace else and throw.
Yeah, if you turn him around, get that quick brush, and he has to get off balance, he'll struggle. I don't think he's a 4 or 5 read guy yet.
No, I don't. I didn't
down on the receivers and
go ahead, Rick.
Clamp down on the receivers and pin him against the sideline so he doesn't have an escape. Make the sideline your ally.
Yeah, your extra defender. There's you know, the more laterally he's moving, he's going to hurt you less. But if you give him something right in his line of vision, if Myles Garrett or whoever is going to, you know, loop around and do the Mark Gastineau routine and leave a wide open hole.
He's going for 15.
Well, yeah, yeah, and it could go for more than that. He is a true broken open field runner. So, you know, it's all about extending plays by forcing him to go laterally, because one thing that we know, and that's that a quarterback who's on the run is generally not as accurate. And you're going to bring up Patrick Mahomes, but I mean, we're not talking about that. But I mean, by and large, when you're running sideways, you're not going to be nearly as effective. And then it comes down to chemistry. Do the receivers and Lamar Jackson have the chemistry for the receivers to come back to the quarterback and bail him out of trouble? Or are they going to stand on the field picking their nose like Pittsburgh Steelers fans? You know, this becomes instant questions. Real quick before I get out of here, so that everybody knows, Indians have their work cut out for them. Mike Minor is pitching. He's a lefty, and he's a good lefty for the Rangers. And the Indians are pitching Aaron Savale. And honestly, he had one good outing. He's looked pretty good in the minor leagues. But the Indians are going to have to score some serious runs in the lineup. So that here's what it looks like. Lindor, Mercado, Santana, Puig, Ramirez, Luplow now moves up, Kipnis, and then they're moving Reyes down to the 8-hole, and Roberto Perez. They're trying to take pressure off of Reyes as he gets acclimated to the American League. The Indians have been playing extremely well, and the Red Sox have been fading. But, right now, as it sits, it's a predominantly 3-team wild card race. And, we have the Rays, who are playing extremely well, and the A's. You got to keep.
Texas is right behind too. Texas is maybe another 3 or 4 games back. Who knows? Maybe they may make a stab at it. It's a pretty good run. Yeah,
and what's interesting is how the American League wild card is so much more competitive. I mean, you look at the National League.
It's god awful. It's Dodgers and then Atlanta, and even Atlanta is like 8-9 games back, and then every other team is a crapshoot.
Yeah, they're all kind of hanging around 500. No one seems to be separating from the field. So, of course, the Indians are up and ready to play at 10 after 7, which means I got to go now. But
I mean, they have the Bieber curse too now. Justin Bieber's endorsing the Indians because of that whole baseball card situation. So
yeah, but what a
we have a Justin Bieber curse now. So
yeah, we need that.
And I know you're going to say, of course, the Indians can do it, but do you see the Indians taking the division title from Minnesota?
No, I don't see the Indians overcoming the Twins, because as well as they've been playing, and what are they, like 36-15 now since a certain date, and they have the best record in the major leagues. They're still 3 games behind the Twins, who have not abdicated the position. It's not like the Twins have just fallen apart. The Indians are 21 games over 500 in their last 36.
Yeah.
But the hard part of the Indian schedule is just around the corner, and it's going to be very, very difficult for the Indians to keep playing this well. No. So do I think that, I'll say this. I like getting Puig. I like getting Reyes. I like having some powerful right-handed bats in the lineup. We've been way too left-handed heavy for the past God knows how many years. So at least they did that right. Bauer went out and sucked a big dick in his first start, and it's only a matter of time until he realizes that there's nothing great about the Great American Stadium when nobody's watching. And going from a team that has got a chance to do something to a team that is going nowhere and still considers Joey Votto the face of their organization, that you really got a fucking problem on your hands. Bauer only lasted 4 1/3 innings in his initial start, and he threw way too many pitches, and all of the things that you thought were not the good things, wild pitch that let a run score, things happened, too many walks, too many long counts on hitters, running the pitch count up, all of the things that we didn't like. And I think it's the right move, and I don't compliment the Indians front office very often, but in this instance, it was worth the risk. Renting Puig, I get it. We're not going to have him next year, but the bottom line is we should get a good 2 months out of him, because he's got to look good to play for his next contract. Yeah. Hopefully Reyes will settle down and stop pressing, and I think that's why Francona has moved him down to the 8-hole. And I wanted to say something else, that where this Jason Kipnis thing is coming from, I've got no idea. That Kipnis is hitting home runs now when he just had warning track power for the past 3 years. Where this is coming from,
I don't know. What do you think, huh?
Well, what I think is the fucking balls juiced for one thing. Fans are getting maimed in the stands because they can't get out of the way of line drives now. The game is becoming very dangerous, and the ball that Lindor hit the other day was higher than it was far, and it just kept going and going. And I mean, every park. I mean, they say that, Ray has hit 27 home runs at a non-home run park. Every park in the big leagues is a home run park now because the ball is juiced. So, I'd like to see Franmil get off and let the ball get deep in. There is a jet stream that's always gone out to right field. Jose Ramirez is a huge beneficiary when he pulls balls down the right field line that the ball keeps carrying. And opposite field power is what Reyes has, and I'd like to see him let the ball get in a little deeper, not worry about pulling the ball so much, and just using the field and letting his natural strength and the juice ball help him out. I'm done.
I was just wondering what everybody.
You're having a show on Thursday. Shows on Thursday.
Why would I have a show on? Oh, yeah. The game. Yeah, of course. There's going to be a halftime and post-game show. Thank you, Rox, for reminding me. Yes, and I think I'm going to do the halftime show using StreamYard, and I think I'm going to do the post game show using Zoom here, and we're going to have some fun to see if we can get people in and out. And I wanted to point out I love my panelists, but I like to do my halftime and post game shows solo because I'm going to try to be bringing in people real fast, and the idea is getting people in and out, not having multiple people talking over one another, because it will be an absolute disaster to listen to. So I want to make sure when we come back on Monday, we'll address everything that needs to be addressed. Okay. But halftime and post-game shows, the halftime show is going to be in and out. It's going to be just a talking head halftime show, and that's it. The post-game show, I'm trying to turn into a call-in program for fans. So
that sounds fun.
We'll see exactly how well it goes and how long the idea lasts.
And I guess that's what the preseason is for, 4 games to sort of test the waters.
It is. It's all practice, and so it's dress rehearsal time.
Mr. Muhammad, as much as I complain about the 162-game season, I will admit that this part of baseball is when it starts to get really interesting, around the 50-40 game mark.
Yeah, at least you'll find out who can maintain and who's going to give up the ghost a la Leo Durocher's Cubs. Anything else before I get out of here? Because, Bronk.
So what do people think of Baker Mayfield at the Jumbotron at the Indians game? Surely you talked about that.
No, I really didn't talk about it because the fact of the matter is that I don't endorse that kind of thing. And, it does raise the specter of,
well, I thought that initially, but once I realized that he was like satiring Aaron Rodgers, then I thought, he's just being funny.
Well, maybe that's the case. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. I did read the thing about Aaron Rodgers. That could well be the case, but immediately the idiot to Colin Cowherd ran the other way with it. So, it's I think they should all just keep their mind on football right now. The Browns need as much help as they can get. That's okay. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. I certainly appreciate everything for your support. We'll be back again on Thursday at halftime of the game and after the game on the post-game show. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next on Thursday. Until then, go Browns, go Tribe, and we'll see you soon. Hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.